Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review Team News Reaction Pod, live from Tynecastle, where Joshua is in the dressing room right now. I'm back in my humble abode, and the team news has just dropped. The Rangers team is Alan McGregor in goal, back four of James Tavernier, Connor Goldson, Ben Davis, and Borna Barisic. Midfield of John Lundstrom, Glenn Kamara, and Malik Tillman, and the front three of Fashion Sakala, Ryan Kent, and Alfredo Morelos. On the bench for Rangers, McLaughlin, Jack, Cholak, Cantwell, Sands, Wright, King, Devine, and Lowry. Joshua, we'll get your initial reaction. I think it was pretty much bang on the team you predicted.
I didn't realise that, Derek. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, it feels like the team that's kind of most suited to this game. Sakala didn't play at the weekend, but he was unfortunate to do so, and I think that it was to do with a personal reason, which Beale spoke about in the press conference. Lundstrom hasn't been great in the last few games for me, but I think this is a game that could suit him more as well if it's a bit more end-to-end, a little bit less about breaking down hearts and more about kind of the game between both boxes, a bit more transitional. Rangers have actually had quite a good record here in the last year, obviously 3 wins under Gio. Before that, it was a bit of a difficult ground, so we'll see which side of this team turns up tonight. But yeah, I think a starting 11, it makes sense.
There is some notable omissions. Scott Arfield being one from the matchday squad. The other omission, Joshua, is Yanis Hadji. Came on, of course, at the weekend in the win over St Johnstone. Michael Beale did touch on whether he's ready to feature tonight, actually, and he says he's wanting to integrate him in slowly. Is that why we don't see him in the matchday squad, do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, he said he was a few weeks away from being able to play 90 minutes. So I think if you look at what type of game this is going to be tonight, totally different to a home game. Probably the most difficult away game outside the Old Firm for Rangers at the moment in the Scottish Premiership. But Lowry's in the squad, and that hasn't always been a certainty in the last few weeks. So interesting to see that. I think Arfield misses out as well, Derek. But yes. no real surprises about Hadji because, as you say, he's only just come back. I don't think he was going to be thrown in early to this game, and there's only so many places on the bench, isn't there?
Yeah, no Arfield. Is that just a case? I mean, we've got Todd Cantwell in now. Of course, Fashion Sakala replaces him in the starting lineup, which I think we all predicted. But it's just a case of the squad is so competitive. Although he is always a good option from the bench, Josh. I would always be inclined to have him on there.
Slightly surprised about that. I mean, you never know. Obviously, we've not heard from the manager pre-match yet, so there could be something to explain that omission. But also, you've got to consider the fact that. You're right, Cantwell's there, Derek, and he loses his place in the weekend. But again, not majorly surprised about that. Beale spoke about playing with 2 goal scorers away from home, and Sakala, I think, more than Cholak. I mean, we spoke this morning about would it be Cholak and Morelos together. I think Sakala gives you a bit more diversity up top because he can run in behind, he can play off the side. And we've not seen Cholak in together yet, so it would be a surprise to see them start together in a game kind of this difficulty compared to other games that Rangers face domestically. So no huge surprises. Good to see Lowry on the bench, as I say, because that's not always been a certainty over the last few weeks. And you'd imagine that omissions from the bench are more about just the squad depth and the fact that Rangers are getting players back and have got players in, as opposed to anything else.
Yeah, right, let's get to a few of the comments that are coming in. John Moffat says, I'd be amazed if it was 3-0. We're definitely not keeping a clean sheet. And he did stress earlier on, he made a comment that he was fearing the worst tonight. He says, they're going to hammer us. I'm dreading this. I wouldn't quite feel like that. I think Rangers go in here and find Fettel. Hearts do likewise, of course, but... listen, I think this Rangers team are a different proposition under Michael Beale as they were under Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. In saying that, Van Bronckhorst did enjoy a 100% record when he did. Parts, so,
and he didn't have that on many grounds, Derek. But it's an interesting side point because Beale so far in these big games, I remember going back to the very start, Aberdeen away, where you thought, is he going to push Tillman into kind of the front line and go with the more conservative midfield 3 as maybe Gerrard would have done, or is he going to retain the same attacking numbers away from home as he does at home? He spoke about that again in his press conference on Monday when he said that especially if a team's going to come at you a bit more when you're playing away from home, then giving them more attackers to think about in return maybe edges it slightly in Rangers' favour. I think what's suited Beale well in these big games, taking the semi-final against Aberdeen and the away tie against Aberdeen so far, has been almost that reluctance to totally get drawn into thinking these games are all about being a battle, and which is something that always, to me, when Gerrard was speaking about these games, that was always a connotation of it, that he wanted to win the fight first and then go and play. Maybe I'm doing him a bit of a disservice with that, but I don't think Beale's done that so far. I think he's focused more about getting as many goal scorers on the pitch and as many good ball players on the pitch as possible, which is obviously what he does at home as well. And you're right, I think it's the last three Rangers have won here, Derek, obviously going back to the 4-0 a few months ago. Chulak as well, back on the bench, having come on in the last couple of games after a couple of months out injured. So he has the option to change it in that way if he wants to.
Yeah, hammered them last time 4-0. A really convincing performance. Cholak with a double, Morelos and Ryan Kent got on the score sheet back in October. Some comments here commenting on your attire, Joshua. Graham Blaney says, does that hat double up as a balaclava, Josh? And Stephen Gillespie says he's got his second job later, robbing washing lines.
I do finish that here, Derek.
Yeah, it's very Home Alone and the Dirty Bandits or whatever they call them. Is very much that. I'm not.
My pop culture references are terrible, Derek. So I have watched that, but I can't help you with the saying. But no, I was thinking it might be a bit colder, but we'll see. I'm always better to have too many layers, Derek. That's what my mom
absolutely. Absolutely spot on. A couple of comments coming in. There's an interesting one. Well, first of all, Fiona Docherty says, evening guys, subscribed yesterday. Great reviews and content. Thank you very much, Fiona. It's greatly appreciated. It's fantastic to have you on board. Hugo Bear says, prefer Jack to Lundstram. Pace of Kent and Sakala will put their defence on the back foot. I did have Jack in my starting 11, Joshua. Don't think John Lundstram's in a good spell of form at the moment. I don't think he's really played well all season, to be honest with you. That's why I had Jack in my side. However, he may have a little bit of a knock from the weekend. Perhaps that's why he's on the bench. Why have you selected Lundstram as opposed to Jack?
You're right. I don't think Lundstram has been in good form at all. Derek, I thought when he replaced Jack at the weekend, he didn't look great, but this type of game maybe should suit him a bit more when he's not always taking the ball off the defence and trying to play a pass that opens up the defence, and instead it's a bit more open. If you think about when you've seen the best of Lundstram, obviously the European run, but as well, I think towards the tail end of last season, especially in games that are more end-to-end, we know that he's been playing through an injury at points. He's kind of played that down. We know he took injections over the kind of festive period to play a few games. But I do think he needs a performance, whether it be tonight, and hopefully it is tonight, for Rangers' sake, to a performance in a big game that he's not had in a while. But we don't know how much is obviously influenced by the fact that Jack, as you say, had to come off at the weekend and arguably probably isn't fully fit, or maybe Beale just doesn't want to risk him. But there's been rotation in that deep line midfield role ever since Beale came in, because none of them have really been able to play full 90 minutes consistently. They've all been managing their own respective injuries, and obviously Raskin as well isn't able to be in the squad yet. So I don't think he'd have started anyway, because he's not played a lot of football yesterday. But until then, I'm not really surprised that it continues. But yeah, I think it's a game that on the face of things should suit Lundstram more, a bit more end-to-end, a bit more opportunity for him to use his physicality and pace, and a pace of game that I think brings the best out of him, as opposed to a slow game where you're asking him to set the tempo more and pick the ball off the centre halves. And I don't always know if you see the best of him when he's doing that. Sometimes, I mean, here earlier in the season, he played that left-foot diagonal to Ravi Matondo for, I think it was Cholak's second goal on that day. He's got that range of passing, but it's about, is the space going to be there to use it? Hearts, I think, will be aggressive. I don't think Nielsen's, the last two games, I think Rangers have been able to play over the top of that, but under Beale it's a different setup. It will be interesting to see how much Rangers react to that, how much they try to play through the pressure, how high Hearts set up, and how Rangers cope with that, because I don't think, although Aberdeen away, it was a similar type of game, you'd probably categorise them together. we saw that Aberdeen team obviously haven't been great over the last couple of months, whereas Hearts are in a good vein of form.
Yeah.
So you'd have to say it's the most kind of difficult away game that Beale's faced so far in the league.
Yeah, big thank you to the guys commenting and correcting me with regards to the Home Alone burglars. Duncan White says it's a wet bandit, so thank you for clearing that one up. CF3 loyals, good point. It's great to see the bench looking very strong with the 5-sub rule. It may be the difference. You touched on Lowry being on the bench, Joshua. As a strong looking bench, isn't it? I'd imagine we'll be seeing Todd Cantwell at some point this evening, depending on how the game goes, of course. But you've got Cholak on there. You've got Jack Sands, of course, is on there as well.
Yeah.
Wright is someone that Michael Beale has brought on at points since coming back to the club. So it is a strong-looking bench and lots of attacking options on there.
Yeah, and still a lot of players not there. I mean, we put out a chart today, Derek, with kind of the squad depth and who Rangers have available. Obviously, you look at that bench, you've not got Tom Lawrence there. You've not got Yanis Hadji, Kemar Roof. So there is a lot of players that still aren't there. We maybe should. I've got the Hearts team in front of me, Derek, so I'll maybe read that out as well because I know we've not done that so far. So they go with Clark, Kingsley. This is in numerical order, which I know some people don't like. Shankland, who's the captain. Kai Rills, centre half, who's I think been really good for Hearts recently. Barry Mackay, Alex Cochrane, Toby Sibic, Josh Tonelli, Garang Cool, James Hill, and Robert Snodgrass, who by all accounts has again had a really good couple of months playing in a more central role for Hearts. Shankland scored a lot of goals recently. Hearts have been in a really good vein of form. Obviously, they got that win over Hibs, 2 wins over Hibs in recent times as well. So this will be a really difficult game for Rangers tonight. But I think it's the right approach to retain the goal scorers in the team, to keep Mallet Tillman in midfield. I thought a really good game actually off the ball at the weekend against St Johnstone, as much as he was really good on the ball as well. No surprise that Cantwell isn't in there, and Sakala as well had a positive game here last year in that 2-0 when he set up Morelos. Morelos at the weekend should have scored a few goals, but I thought his overall link-up play was again trending in the right direction. And Rangers are still waiting for a 90-minute performance. They're still waiting, I think, for a showing that there's a real statement over the course of the 90 minutes. And if they're able to do that tonight, that would be impressive. But it's about, I think, retaining that momentum. And inevitably, at some point, there will be a bump in the road under Beale, because there's always going to be with any manager at any team. But the hope that they can keep it going tonight, obviously ahead of another trip back to Ibrox at the weekend.
Yes, and Lowe's may be wondering why Nicholas Raskin isn't involved. His work permit hasn't been ratified as yet, so that is why he's not featuring. I doubt he would have featured anyway, to be honest. It was a bit of it was in yesterday, of course, through the signing and being unveiled and what have you. So we should perhaps, fingers crossed, see him at the weekend against Ross County. Right, Joshua, before you go, score prediction. How's it ending up tonight?
Ooh, I'll say 2-1. I think, who do I think is going to score? Always think Mallet Tillman's going to score, Derek, obviously, because he's my favourite player. Let's say Tillman and Morelos to put it right after missing a few at the weekend. What about you?
I think I would go along the same as you. I think it's going to be tight. Rangers are going to have to roll their sleeves up from the off. I'm really hoping for a fast start tonight. They really need to go at Hearts, because they're going to be up for it. The Tynecastle crowd is always up for it. It's a cracking venue to play football, but I just fancy Rangers to get over the line. And like you, I think Tillman could be the difference maker again this evening, and I'd love to see Morelos score. He does love a goal against Hearts.
He does.
He certainly does.
He does.
I would love him to do that knee slide once again, much to the delight of the Hearts supporters, as we've seen back in October. Right, folks, that'll do us there. We'll be back. Joshua may be back later on. If you're on Twitter, actually, but we're planning to do a halftime spaces. So if you're on there, obviously the game is not on Sky this evening. So if you want to have a bit of debate at halftime, find us on Twitter, and we can shoot the fat on there. But until then, we'll speak to you a little later on. Bye for now.